The morning sun streamed through the towering windows of Massachusetts General Hospital, casting a golden glow across the polished floors of the cardiology wing. Dr. Naomi Carter, a 45-year-old Black American cardiologist, moved with purpose through her morning rounds, her white coat crisp and stethoscope draped around her neck. At the peak of her career, Naomi was a beacon in Boston's medical community, known for her surgical precision, warmth, and dedication. Her colleagues often marveled at how she balanced the demands of her profession with her role as a devoted mother and wife, a feat that seemed almost superhuman in the high-stakes world of medicine. Naomi paused to review a patient's chart, her dark eyes scanning the data with practiced ease. Mr. Thompson, a 62-year-old with a history of hypertension, had responded well to the new treatment plan she'd devised. She made a note to discuss his progress with the attending nurse, her handwriting neat and deliberate. As she closed the chart, Nurse Clara Evans hurried past, balancing a stack of files. "Great work on the Thompson case, Dr. Carter," Clara called, her voice bright with admiration. "You're a lifesaver, as always." Naomi smiled, her heart warmed by the compliment. "Team effort, Clara," she replied, tucking a strand of her neatly braided hair behind her ear. She glanced at her watch. 9:45 a.m. Just enough time to finish her rounds and make it to her daughter Lila's dance recital across town. Lila, at 14, was a whirlwind of energy, her passion for ballet rivaling Naomi's drive in medicine. The thought of Lila pirouetting on stage brought a spark of pride to Naomi's chest, a reminder of why she pushed herself so hard. Her son, Jordan, 17, was another source of joy. A senior at Boston Latin Academy, he was deep in college applications, his sights set on MIT's engineering program. Naomi often teased him about his late-night study sessions, but she admired his determination, a trait he'd inherited from her and her husband, Ethan Brooks. Ethan, a white American real estate magnate, had built Brooks Properties from a single fixer-upper into a powerhouse in Boston's competitive property market. Their 20-year marriage was a partnership of equals, or so Naomi believed, built on shared ambition and mutual respect. As she walked down the bustling hospital corridor, Naomi's assistant, Maya, approached with a clipboard. "Dr. Carter, your husband called," Maya said, her tone professional but warm. "He said not to worry about dinner tonight. He's working late again on the Seaport project." Naomi nodded, a faint crease forming on her brow. "Thanks, Maya. He's been burning the midnight oil lately, hasn't he?" She kept her voice light, but a small voice of unease stirred in the back of her mind. Ethan's late nights had become more frequent, his explanations tied to the expansion of Brooks Properties into Boston's booming Seaport district. Naomi pushed the thought aside. Ethan was driven, just as she was. Their life together, complete with a brownstone in Back Bay, 2 brilliant children, and a network of friends in Boston's elite circles, proved their shared success. She gathered her things from her office, a cozy space adorned with family photos and awards. At their wedding, a framed picture of her and Ethan caught her eye. Her in a flowing white gown, him in a sharp tuxedo, both beaming under a canopy of roses. Next was a recent photo of Jordan and Lila, laughing at a summer barbecue. Naomi's heart swelled. This was her why. The family she'd built, the life she'd crafted through years of hard work and love. Outside, Boston buzzed with early summer energy. Naomi slipped into her car, a sleek hybrid she'd bought to celebrate her promotion to head of cardiothoracic surgery. As she navigated through traffic toward Lila's dance studio, her phone pinged with a text from Jordan. "Mom, don't forget Lila's recital starts at 11. Dad said he might be late." Naomi frowned slightly, but typed back, "Got it, sweetheart. I'll be there. Love you." She hoped Ethan would make it. Lila deserved to see both her parents in the audience. Unbeknownst to Naomi, Across town in a luxury apartment overlooking the Charles River, Ethan wasn't at his office. The apartment, paid for with Brooks's family money, was a secret he kept from his wife. Inside, he sat on a plush sofa, his tie loosened, as Kayla Reed, Jordan's 25-year-old tutor, poured him a glass of wine. With her sharp intellect and calculated charm, Kayla laughed at something Ethan said, her hand brushing his arm. "Your mother called earlier," she remarked, her voice casual but pointed. "She wants to know if we're still on for dinner tomorrow." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Mothers are always planning something," he muttered. Vivian Brooks, Ethan's mother, had never warmed to Naomi. She played the gracious matriarch in public, hosting galas and smiling for photos. But in private, her disapproval of her son's marriage to a black woman simmered, a prejudice she cloaked in concern for the Brooks family legacy. Vivian saw Kayla as a tool, a young woman she could mold to drive a wedge between Ethan and Naomi. Caught in his mother's orbit, Ethan didn't question the arrangement, at least not yet. Back at the hospital, Naomi had no inkling of the betrayal brewing. As she parked near the dance studio, she adjusted her scarf and took a deep breath, ready to cheer for Lila. The recital was a small but significant moment, a chance to be present for her daughter amid her hectic schedule. She stepped out of the car, her heels clicking on the pavement, unaware that the perfect life she cherished was about to unravel. The morning sun, so warm and promising, cast shadows she couldn't yet see, shadows that would soon force her to confront the truth about her husband, her mother-in-law, and the strength she carried within. The late afternoon light filtered through the tall windows of the Carter family's Back Bay brownstone, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Naomi Carter stood in the living room, her hands guiding Lila through ballet stretches. Lila, her ponytail bouncing, adjusted her determined posture, her eyes fixed on the mirror propped against the wall. "Keep your shoulders down, sweetheart," Naomi said, her voice encouraging but firm. "You're going to steal the show tomorrow." Lila grinned, but her expression faltered as she asked, "Will Dad make it this time?" He promised. Naomi's smile tightened, a pang of uncertainty stirring in her chest. "He'll try, Lila. The Seaport project keeps him busy, but he knows how important this is." She smoothed her daughter's hair, hoping her words sounded more confident than she felt. Ethan's absences had become a pattern. Late nights at Brooks Properties, missed family dinners, vague excuses about investor meetings. Naomi pushed the thought away, focusing on Lila's pirouette. The recital was tomorrow, and she wouldn't let Ethan's schedule dim her daughter's moment. In the kitchen, Jordan sat at the granite island, his laptop open to a calculus problem set. His earbuds dangled loosely, more for show than use, as he scrolled through his phone instead of studying. Naomi caught his eye. "How's tutoring with Kayla going?" she asked, leaning against the counter and making progress on those MIT essays. Jordan hesitated, his gaze flickering to the floor. "It's fine," he mumbled, his fingers tightening around his phone. "She's helping." Naomi frowned, sensing his unease. Jordan had always been open about school, but lately, he clammed up whenever Kayla's name came up. She made a mental note to check in with him later, chalking it up to senior year stress. "Keep at it, champ," she said, ruffling his hair. "You've got this." Jordan forced a smile, but his mind was elsewhere. He'd seen Kayla and Ethan at a coffee shop last month, their heads bent close, her hand brushing his father's arm. He'd told himself it was nothing, a tutoring payment maybe, but the memory gnawed at him. How could he tell his mother something that might break her heart? Later that evening, Naomi sat alone in their bedroom, the house quiet, except for the faint hum of the city outside. Ethan had texted earlier, "Stuck at the office, don't wait up." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. The bed felt too large without him, the silence amplifying her thoughts. She reached for her journal, a leather-bound book she kept on her nightstand, and began to write. Ethan's absences feel heavier now. He says it's work, but there's a distance in his voice and his eyes. Am I naive to trust him? 20 years, 2 kids, a life we built together. Does that count for nothing? Her pen paused, the words staring back at her. Naomi wasn't one to dwell on doubt. Her career demanded decisiveness, and her family relied on her strength. But tonight, the whispers of unease were louder, like a pulse she couldn't ignore. She closed the journal and stood, crossing to the window. Boston's skyline glittered below, a city of ambition and secrets. She wondered if Ethan was out there, lost in his world, or if he was still the man who'd promised to love her forever. Across town, in a dimly lit restaurant in the Seaport district, Vivian Brooks sipped a martini, her silver hair impeccable, her designer scarf draped with calculated elegance. Across from her sat Kayla Reed, her expression a mix of deference and ambition. The restaurant, a favorite among Boston's elite, buzzed with hushed conversations. But Vivian's corner table was an island of control. "You're doing well, Kayla," Vivian said, her voice low and precise. "Ethan's distracted, just as we planned. Keep him close. Naomi doesn't belong in our world, and it's time he sees that." Kayla nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "He's receptive," she said carefully. "But he talks about his kids a lot. Jordan's tutoring sessions, Lila's dance. It's hard to steer him away." Vivian's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a thin smile. "Focus on Ethan, not his children. You're young and charming, which is precisely what he must forget about his obligations. I've arranged another payment to your account. Please don't disappoint me." Vivian's words carried the weight of her prejudice, a belief that Naomi, with her brilliance and drive, was an outsider in the Brooks family's rarefied circle. For years, Vivian had played the gracious mother-in-law, hosting Naomi at galas, smiling for photos. But in private, her disdain festered, rooted in a racism she cloaked in concern for family legacy. With her graduate degree and hunger for status, Kayla was the perfect instrument, a young woman Vivian could mold to unravel Ethan's marriage. Kayla shifted in her seat, her thoughts flickering to her own life. Raised in a working-class suburb, she'd clawed her way into Boston's academic circles, but student loans and rent kept her tethered to survival. Vivian's offer, money, connections, had been a lifeline, but it came with strings. She pushed the unease aside, focusing on Vivian's promise of a future among the elite. "I won't let you down," Mrs. Brooks said, her voice steady. Vivian raised her glass, sealing the pact. Naomi tucked Lila into bed at the brownstone, and her daughter's ballet shoes were neatly arranged for the recital. "You're going to shine, baby," she whispered, kissing Lila's forehead. Lila yawned, her eyes heavy. "I want you and Dad to be proud." Naomi's heart ached at the words, the weight of Ethan's absence pressing harder. She slipped into Jordan's room, finding him still at his desk, his laptop screen dark. "Get some rest, Jordan," she said softly. "Big day tomorrow." Jordan nodded, but as Naomi left, he opened his phone to a text from Kayla. "Great session today. Let's review essays tomorrow." He stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply. He wanted to believe it was just tutoring, but the image of Kayla and Ethan at the coffee shop lingered, a secret he wasn't ready to face. Naomi returned to her journal downstairs, writing one final line. "Something's off, but I won't let fear win. Tomorrow, I'm there for Lila. That's what matters." Outside, the Boston night hummed with possibility and betrayal, a city holding its breath. Naomi closed her journal, unaware that her cherished life was teetering on the edge of a truth that would test her strength, love, and everything she believed about her family. The soft glow of the bedside lamp illuminated Naomi Carter's bedroom, casting a warm but fragile light across the room. It was well past midnight, and the Back Bay brownstone was silent, save for the occasional creak of the old house settling. Naomi sat on the edge of her bed, her hands trembling as she stared at the family iPad Jordan had left on the nightstand. She hadn't meant to pry, but a notification had caught her eye. An email from Kayla Reed, Jordan's tutor, with the subject line, "Session Notes." Something, perhaps the unease that had been gnawing at her for weeks, compelled her to open it. Her breath caught as the screen filled with photos. Ethan, her husband of 20 years, with Kayla in intimate settings, a candlelit dinner, a hotel lobby, their hands entwined. The timestamps stretched back months, each image a dagger to Naomi's heart. Her chest tightened, the air suddenly thin. She scrolled further, her fingers moving on instinct, and found an email thread that made her blood run cold. Messages from Vivian Brooks, Ethan's mother, detailed payments to Kayla's bank account, accompanied by instructions. Meet him at the gala. Wear the blue dress. Keep him distracted. Another email read, Naomi's career consumes her. Ethan needs someone who fits our world. Naomi's vision blurred with tears, but she kept reading. Bank transfer receipts confirmed Vivian's payments. Tens of thousands of dollars funneled to Kayla to seduce Ethan and dismantle their marriage. The evidence was meticulous, a conspiracy laid bare in black and white. Vivian's prejudice, which Naomi had always sensed but never confronted, was the architect of this betrayal. The perfect life she'd built, her family, her home, her trust in Ethan, was a lie, orchestrated by a woman who saw her as unworthy. She stumbled to the bathroom, gripping the marble counter as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger, her eyes raw with pain. "I gave everything," Naomi whispered, her voice breaking. 20 years, 2 children, every ounce of my heart. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but as she stood there, something else flickered in her gaze. Rage, sharp and unyielding. She splashed cold water on her face, her hands steadying. "They'll regret this," she vowed, the words a promise to herself, all of them. Naomi returned to the bedroom, her mind racing. She couldn't sleep, not with her world crumbling. She opened her journal, the leather-bound book her anchor in moments of doubt, and began writing. "I learned the truth tonight. Ethan's affair, Vivian's money, Kayla's role. It's all a plan to erase me. The pain is unbearable, but I won't let it define me. I've saved lives in the OR. I can save my own. They think they've broken me, but they've only woken me up." Her pen moved furiously, each word a step toward resolve. She questioned herself. Had she been blind to Ethan's distance, to Vivian's smiles? But self-doubt gave way to determination. "I'm not the one who should be ashamed," she wrote. "They are." She moved to her home office, a small sanctuary lined with medical journals and family photos. Booting up her laptop, Naomi began compiling the evidence. She saved every photo, every email, every bank transfer, organizing them into a folder labeled Truth. The process was methodical, a surgeon's precision applied to her crisis. She cross-referenced dates, noting how Vivian's payments coincided with Ethan's late nights. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was calculated, rooted in Vivian's belief that Naomi didn't belong in the Brooks family's elite circle. Each mouse click fueled Naomi's anger and sharpened her focus. This wasn't just about her marriage, but about exposing a more profound injustice. As dawn broke, Painting the Boston skyline in hues of pink and gold, Naomi leaned back in her chair, exhausted but resolute. The evidence was airtight, a weapon she would wield when the time was right. She thought of Jordan and Lila, asleep upstairs, unaware of the storm about to hit their family. Her heart ached for them, but she vowed to shield them as best she could. "They deserve the truth," she murmured, "but they also deserve a mother who fights back." Naomi stood, stretching her stiff limbs, and caught sight of a photo on her desk. Her, Ethan, Jordan, and Lila at a Cape Cod beach last summer, laughing as waves crashed around them. The memory felt like a lifetime ago. She touched the frame, her fingers lingering on Ethan's smile. Had he ever loved her the way she'd loved him? Or had Vivian's influence always been a shadow over their marriage? The questions stung, but Naomi pushed them aside. There would be time for answers later. Now, she needed to act. She opened her journal again, adding a final entry. "Vivian thinks she can control this family with her money and hate. Ethan says he can hide behind his lies. Kayla thinks she's untouchable. They're wrong. I've spent my life saving other people's hearts. Now it's time to save my own. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. They've started a war, and I'm ready to fight." Closing the journal, Naomi felt a shift within her, a spark of the strength that had carried her through medical school, through prejudice in her career, through every challenge she'd faced. The woman Vivian sought to destroy was gone, replaced by someone fiercer, someone who would not be silenced. Outside, the city woke to a new day, its rhythm unchanged. But for Naomi, everything had changed. The brownstone, once a haven, now felt like a battlefield. She slipped the iPad into her desk drawer, locking it for safekeeping. As she prepared for the day, Lila's recital and rounds at the hospital, she carried the weight of her discovery and a newfound power. The truth was hers, and she would use it to reclaim her life, family, and dignity. The stage was set, and Naomi Carter was no longer just a wife or a doctor. She was a force, ready to confront the betrayal that threatened to tear her world apart. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen windows of the Carter family's Back Bay brownstone, glinting off the stainless steel appliances. Naomi Carter stood by the counter, her posture rigid, a steaming mug of coffee untouched in her hands. She hadn't slept, her night consumed by the devastating discovery of Ethan's affair with Kayla Reed and Vivian Brooks's orchestrated conspiracy. The iPad evidence, photos, emails, bank transfers, burned in her mind, each detail a fresh wound. Yet, as she waited for Ethan to return, her resolve hardened. The woman who had once trusted unquestioningly was gone. In her place stood someone ready to fight. The front door clicked open, and Ethan stepped into the kitchen. His tie loosened, his suit jacket slung over one arm. He looked weary, as if the night had been long, but his casual demeanor grated against Naomi's raw nerves. "Morning," he said, heading for the coffee maker. "Late night at the office. The Seaport deal's a beast." His words were rehearsed, a script Naomi now saw through. "Late night, huh?" Naomi's voice was steady, cutting through the morning quiet like a scalpel. She set her mug down and slid her phone across the counter, the screen displaying a photo of Ethan and Kayla, their hands entwined at a hotel bar. "Care to explain this?" Ethan froze, the coffee pot hovering mid-pour. His eyes darted to the phone, and the color drained from his face. "Naomi, it's not what you think," he stammered, setting the pot down with a clatter. "It's just..." "Not what?" Naomi interrupted, her voice rising but controlled. She swiped to another image, then another, each one a snapshot of his betrayal. "That you're sleeping with our son's tutor? Or that your mother paid her to seduce you. And Vivian's instructions and bank transfers were laid bare when she opened the email thread. 20 years, Ethan. 2 children. And this is how you repay me? The kitchen door creaked, and Naomi glanced over to see Jordan and Lila in the hallway, their faces pale. Lila's eyes brimmed with tears, her ballet bag clutched tightly. Jordan's jaw was set, guilt etched in his expression. He'd suspected but said nothing. Naomi's heart ached for them, but she held Ethan's gaze, refusing to waver. She said they deserved to hear the truth, her voice softer but no less firm. So do I. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his voice desperate. Naomi, it just happened. Kayla and I, it wasn't planned. It's not about Mother. His denial crumbled as Naomi tapped the phone, revealing Vivian's email. Naomi's ambition overshadows you. Kayla's perfect for our circle. Nothing happens when Vivian Brooks is involved. Naomi shoots back, her anger flaring. She paid Kayla thousands to destroy our marriage because she's never accepted me. And you? She laughed bitterly, the sound sharp. You're so weak that you let your mother choose your mistress. Did you even fight her, or go along because it was easier? Ethan slammed his hand on the counter, startling Lila, who clutched Jordan's arm. Don't bring Mother into this, he snapped. This is between us. Wrong, Naomi said, her voice cold as steel. She pulled a stack of papers from a folder on the counter. Legal documents prepared during her sleepless night. I spoke to my lawyer. This house is in both our names, and with proof of your affair and Vivian's conspiracy, guess who's not staying here? She slid the papers toward him. You've got until tonight to pack. Ethan stared at the documents, his bravado fading. You're blowing this out of proportion. We can fix this, Naomi, for the kids. His eyes flicked to Jordan and Lila, but Jordan looked away, and Lila's tears fell silently. Fix this? Naomi's voice trembled with fury. You betrayed our children's trust. You let your mother's prejudice poison our family. There's no fixing that. She stepped closer, her presence commanding. And tell Kayla that her tutoring services are done. The school board will be interested in her extracurricular activities with parents. Ethan grabbed his jacket, his face a mask of panic and defiance. I'm calling my lawyer, he muttered, storming toward the door. This isn't over. It's just begun, Naomi called after him, her words a promise. The door slammed, and the kitchen fell silent, save for Lila's quiet sobs. Naomi knelt beside her children, pulling them into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry you heard that, she whispered. But I promise, we're going to be okay. Jordan's voice cracked. I should have told you, Mom. I saw them once, but I didn't know how. Naomi cupped his face. This isn't your fault, baby. None of it. Lila clung to her, whispering, Is Dad gone forever? Naomi's heart broke, but she answered firmly, We're enough, Lila. We've always been enough. Alone again, Naomi sank into a chair, her hands still shaking, not from fear, but from the fire within her. She opened her journal, and the pages were a refuge for her thoughts. Confronting Ethan was like cutting out a tumor, she wrote. It hurts, but it's necessary. I saw the kids' pain, and it nearly broke me. But I also saw my strength. Vivian and Ethan think they've won, but they've underestimated me. I'm fighting for myself and Jordan, Lila, and the truth. She closed the journal, her resolve unshakable. Naomi stood, smoothing her blouse, and glanced at the clock. Lila's recital was in 2 hours, and she would be there, front row, no matter the storm raging inside her. She tucked the legal papers into her briefcase, alongside the iPad with its damning evidence. The confrontation had drawn a line in the sand, and Naomi was ready to cross it. Ethan's betrayal and Vivian's schemes had shattered her world, but they had also awakened a force she hadn't fully known. A woman who would not be silenced, turn pain into power, and fight for the family she loved. The dim light of a single lamp illuminated Ethan Brooks's temporary apartment, a sterile one-bedroom in Boston's Seaport district, far from the warmth of the Back Bay brownstone he'd once called home. The space was sparsely furnished: a leather couch, a glass coffee table, a bed he barely slept in. Ethan sat on the sofa, his tie discarded, a half-empty glass of bourbon in his hand. The confrontation with Naomi replayed in his mind like a relentless loop. Her steady voice, the damning photos, the legal papers that marked the end of their marriage. Her words, "You're so weak, you let your mother choose your mistress," cut deeper than he'd expected, exposing a truth he'd avoided for years. Ethan's gaze drifted to a framed photo on the table, one he'd grabbed as he left the brownstone. Lila's first dance recital, her tiny tutu dwarfing her frame. Naomi and Jordan cheering beside him. He'd been there, hadn't he? Proud, present, a father who showed up. But the memory felt distant, overshadowed by the choices that led him here. He set the glass down and rubbed his temples, the weight of his betrayal pressing against his chest. How had it come to this? How had he let his mother, Vivian, and a woman like Kayla Reed unravel the life he'd built with Naomi? His mind returned to a vivid and sharp memory from 20 years ago. It was a summer evening at a Cape Cod vineyard, where he'd proposed to Naomi under a sky streaked with stars. She'd laughed, her eyes sparkling, when he fumbled the ring box. "You're sure about this, Brooks?" she'd teased, her voice warm. "Your mother's already giving me side-eye." Ethan had pulled her close, defiant. "Let her. You're my choice, always." Vivian's disapproval had been palpable even then. Her tight smiles, her pointed comments about family expectations. But Ethan loved Naomi's fire, brilliance, and refusal to bend to anyone's prejudice. He'd promised to stand by her, to build a life together, no matter what. Yet, Vivian's influence crept in over the years like a slow poison. At first, it was subtle. Dinners where she praised Ethan's achievements while ignoring Naomi's. Galas where she introduced him to suitable white business allies, always tied to Boston's old money. "Naomi's ambition overshadows you," Vivian would say, her voice silky. "You need to shine, Ethan, for the Brooks legacy." He'd brushed it off, telling himself he could handle his mother. But the pressure to uphold the family name, to be the son Vivian expected, wore him down. He started to doubt himself, his worth, his place beside a woman as formidable as Naomi. The affair with Kayla began at a Brooks Properties gala, orchestrated by Vivian. Kayla, poised and attentive, had approached him with a smile that felt like an escape. "You're doing incredible things, Ethan," she'd said, her words a balm to his bruised ego. Vivian had arranged their meetings, framing them as tutoring consultations for Jordan. Ethan knew it was wrong, but Kayla's flattery, her ease in his mother's world, was a temptation he didn't resist. He told himself it was fleeting and wouldn't touch his family. But deep down, he knew he was betraying the woman he'd vowed to love. Now, in the cold light of his apartment, Ethan faced the wreckage of his choices. After Naomi's confrontation, he'd stormed out of the brownstone, but her words haunted him. "You let your mother's prejudice poison our family." She was right. He'd been weak, complicit, too afraid to challenge Vivian's control. The photos, the emails, Vivian's payments to Kayla weren't just a scandal. They were proof of his failure as a husband, father, and man. Ethan stood and crossed to the window, Boston's skyline glittering below. He thought of Jordan's averted gaze, Lila's tears. He'd hurt them too, and the guilt was a vice around his heart. Desperate for clarity, he pulled out his phone and dialed his therapist, Dr. Rachel Stein, who'd agreed to an emergency session. An hour later, he sat in her quiet office, the bourbon replaced by a glass of water. "Why did I let this happen, Rachel?" Ethan asked, his voice raw. "I love Naomi. I love my kids. But I let Mother control me. Let Kayla. I don't even know why." Dr. Stein leaned forward, her expression calm but probing. "Let's unpack that. You say Vivian controlled you. What did that feel like over the years?" Ethan exhaled, his mind racing. "Like I was never enough. She'd compare me to Dad, to other men in her circle. Said I needed to protect the Brooks name. Naomi was too much for her. Too independent. Too successful. Mother never said it outright, but she wanted someone else for me who fit her world. And Kayla fit that world," Dr. Stein said, not a question. "What did she give you that Naomi didn't?" Ethan flinched. "Escape. She made me feel seen, without the weight of expectations. But it was a lie. Mother set it up, and I was too weak to say no." He paused, his voice breaking. "I betrayed Naomi, but I betrayed myself too. I'm not the man I thought I was." Dr. Stein nodded. "That's a start, Ethan. Recognizing your role is the first step. But regret isn't enough. What do you want now? For yourself? For your family?" Ethan stared at the floor, the photo of Lila's recital flashing. "I want to be a father my kids can trust. I want to make this right, somehow. But Naomi, I don't know if she'll ever forgive me." "Forgiveness isn't yours to demand," Dr. Stein said gently. "It's hers to give, or not. Focus on what you can control, your actions, your growth. You've been living under Vivian's shadow. What does Ethan Brooks want, independent of her?" The question lingered as Ethan left the session, his mind a tangle of regret and resolve. He picked up the photo again in his apartment, tracing Lila's smile. He'd missed too many recitals, too many moments. Vivian's voice still echoed, her schemes, her prejudice. But Ethan felt a spark of defiance, faint but discernible. He wasn't ready to face Naomi yet, but he knew he had to change, not for his mother's approval, but for himself and the family he'd nearly lost. The fluorescent lights of Kayla Reed's cramped studio apartment flickered, casting a harsh glow over the chaos of her life. Boxes lined the walls, half-packed with books and clothes, a testament to her unraveling world. The luxury apartment Vivian Brooks had rented for her was gone, and the lease was canceled after Naomi's confrontation exposed the affair. Kayla sat cross-legged on the floor, her laptop open to a string of canceled tutoring contracts. Wealthy families who'd once praised her now shunned her, their emails curt. "We no longer require your services." Her phone buzzed with a voicemail from her mother, who had left hours ago. "Kayla, you're better than their games. Come home if you need to." The words stung, a reminder of the life she'd left behind. Kayla's journey to Boston had been a gamble. Raised in a working-class suburb of Worcester, she'd grown up in a modest, split-level house, her parents scraping by on factory wages. She'd excelled in school, earning a scholarship to Boston University. But graduate school brought crushing student loans and rent she could barely afford. Tutoring paid the bills, but Vivian Brooks's offer changed everything. At a Brooks Properties gala, Vivian had approached her, all elegance and promise. "You're bright and ambitious," Vivian had said, her smile calculated. "Help my son with a personal matter, and I'll open doors for you. Connections, money, a place in our world." Dazzled by the prospect of escaping her financial treadmill, Kayla had agreed, ignoring the moral cost. The personal matter was Ethan, and the task was to seduce him, to drive a wedge between him and Naomi. Vivian's payments, deposited discreetly into Kayla's account, covered rent, loans, even a designer wardrobe to blend into Boston's elite. Kayla told herself it was temporary, a means to an end. She played her part, charming Ethan at galas, lingering during Jordan's tutoring sessions, texting him late at night. But the role grew heavier, especially when she saw Jordan's guarded looks or heard Ethan talk about Lila's dance recitals with a father's pride. She'd pushed the guilt down, focusing on Vivian's promises of a future among the city's power brokers. Now, that future was ashes. Naomi's discovery had blown up Kayla's carefully constructed life. The tutoring cancellations were just the start. Whispers of her affair with Ethan spread through Boston's elite, tainting her reputation. She opened her laptop to a news article about Brooks Properties, its stock dipping amid rumors of a scandal. Her name wasn't mentioned, but the subtext was clear. She was the other woman, the homewrecker. Kayla's stomach churned. Vivian had used her, dangling wealth and status, only to abandon her when the plan unraveled. She stood, pacing the small apartment, her bare feet cold against the linoleum. Her eyes fell on a photo pinned to a corkboard. Her parents at her college graduation, beaming despite their worn clothes. They'd sacrificed everything for her education, believing she'd overcome their struggles. "What have I done?" Kayla whispered, her voice breaking. She'd traded her integrity for Vivian's empty promises, hurting a family. Naomi's face during the confrontation, fierce, unbroken, haunted her. Kayla had expected a broken woman. Instead, she'd seen a force, a mother protecting her children. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Vivian. "Meet me at my office. We need to align our stories." The message was curt, a command, not a request. Kayla stared at it, her pulse quickening. Vivian had orchestrated this disaster, yet she still expected loyalty. The audacity sparked something in Kayla, a flicker of defiance, fueled by her mother's words and shame. She grabbed her phone and opened its recording app, a plan forming. If Vivian thought she could control her, she was wrong. An hour later, Kayla sat across from Vivian in the sleek, glass-walled office of Brooks Properties, the Boston skyline a stark backdrop. Vivian, immaculate in a tailored blazer, sipped tea, her composure unruffled. "This is a minor setback," she said, her voice smooth. "Naomi's making noise, but she'll fade. You'll stay quiet, Kayla. I've protected you before. I can do it again." Kayla's fingers tightened around her phone, and hidden in her lap was the recording app running. "Protected me?" she said, her tone sharp. "My clients dropped me. My reputation's ruined. You promised I'd be untouchable." Vivian's smile was cold. "You knew the risks. You wanted into our world, and I gave you a chance. Naomi was never good enough for my son. Too ambitious, too different. Ethan needed someone like you, someone who fits." "Fits?" Kayla pressed, leaning forward. "You mean someone you could control. You paid me to break up their marriage because you couldn't stand Naomi. Say it." Vivian's eyes narrowed, but her arrogance betrayed her. "Fine," she snapped. "Naomi's a threat to our legacy. I did what was necessary, paid you, arranged the meetings, and ensured Ethan stayed. It's business, Kayla. You profited, so don't play the victim." Kayla's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. And the other families? Was that business too? She'd once seen emails on Vivian's laptop, hints of different projects to disrupt marriages Vivian deemed unsuitable. Vivian waved a hand. "Irrelevant. Focus on the present. We deny everything, and Naomi's evidence means nothing without context." She stood, dismissing Kayla. Go home. I'll handle this. Kayla left, her phone burning in her pocket. The recording was gold. Vivian's confession, explicit and damning. She walked through Boston's bustling streets, her mind racing. She could send the recording to Naomi, the press, and anyone listening. But the choice wasn't easy. Exposing Vivian meant exposing herself, admitting her role in the affair. She thought of her mother's voicemail, her parents' pride, and Naomi's strength. Kayla had been a pawn, but didn't have to stay one. Back in her apartment, Kayla connected her phone to her laptop, and the recording file glowed on the screen. She hesitated, then typed an email to a local news outlet, attaching the audio. "Vivian Brooks paid me to destroy a family," she wrote. "Here's the truth." Her finger hovered over the send button, her breath shallow. This was her rebellion, her chance to reclaim the person she'd lost to greed. She clicked send, the email vanishing into the ether. The consequences would be swift, but Kayla felt a weight lift. She wasn't Vivian's puppet anymore. She was a woman choosing redemption, no matter the cost. The Boston morning buzzed with a frenetic energy as news channels erupted with a bombshell, a leaked audio recording of Vivian Brooks confessing to orchestrating an affair to sabotage her son's marriage. Kayla Reed's email to a local outlet had ignited a firestorm, and by dawn, Vivian's voice, calm, arrogant, dripping with prejudice, played on every major network. "Naomi was never good enough for my son," she'd said, admitting to paying Kayla to seduce Ethan. The revelation, dubbed the Brooks Reckoning, sent shockwaves through Boston's elite, exposing a personal betrayal and a deeper rot in the city's high society. Naomi Carter walked through the corridors of Massachusetts General Hospital, her heels clicking with purpose. She wore a striking red dress, chosen for the divorce hearing scheduled that afternoon, its bold hue a silent declaration of her resolve. Colleagues offered nods of support, their whispers trailing her. "Did you see the news? Vivian Brooks is finished." Naomi kept her head high, her expression composed, but inside, her heart raced. The recording was a vindication, proof that her pain wasn't imagined. Yet, it also thrust her family into a public spotlight she hadn't anticipated. In her office, Naomi paused to check her phone. Texts flooded in. Friends, co-workers, even patients, offering solidarity. A message from her lawyer, Rachel Kim, stood out. "The recording strengthens our case. Vivian's facing conspiracy and fraud charges. Be ready for court." Naomi exhaled, steadying herself. The evidence she'd compiled, photos, emails, bank transfers, paired with Kayla's audio, was a legal sledgehammer. But the victory felt bittersweet. Her children's pain lingered in her mind, a wound no courtroom could heal. Across town, Vivian Brooks sat in her opulent Beacon Hill mansion, her composure cracking as she watched the news. Her phone, once a lifeline to Boston's power brokers, was silent. The symphony board had canceled her seat. The country club had postponed her membership. Her lawyer, James Whitaker, stood before her, his face grim. "The DA's building a case," he said. "Conspiracy to commit fraud, harassment, maybe more. The recording's airtight, and Naomi's evidence corroborates it." Vivian's manicured nails dug into her palms. Naomi spat. "She's destroying our legacy." "No," Whitaker corrected, his tone blunt. "You did that. The audio's everywhere. Your own words, Vivian." He gestured to the TV, where a reporter analyzed the scandal. The Brooks Reckoning exposes a pattern of prejudice in Boston's elite, echoing the city's history of racial gatekeeping, from redlining in the 20th century to exclusion in private clubs today. Vivian switched off the screen, her face pale. Her empire, built on influence and manipulation, was crumbling, and she had no one to blame but herself. At the hospital, Naomi met with Dr. Henry Patel, the board chairman, in a quiet conference room. "Hell of a morning," he said, his smile kind but serious. The board voted unanimously. "We're launching the Naomi Carter Fellowship for underrepresented medical students, effective immediately. Your story's inspiring people, Naomi, beyond this hospital." Naomi sat back, stunned. "Henry, that's incredible." Patel nodded. "It's a start. Boston's waking up to its blind spots, thanks to you." The fellowship was a beacon, but Naomi's thoughts turned to Jordan and Lila. She'd promised to shield them, but the media frenzy made that harder. She opened her journal, a habit that grounded her amidst the chaos, and wrote, "The world knows the truth now, but it's not enough. Vivian's fall doesn't erase Jordan's guilt or Lila's tears. I'm fighting for them, for us. But the spotlight burns. Can I protect my kids while changing this city?" She closed the journal, and her resolve was firm. The red dress, symbolizing her defiance, felt like armor as she prepared for court. Meanwhile, reporters swarmed at the Suffolk County Courthouse as Vivian arrived, flanked by security. Her designer suit couldn't mask her diminished presence. Inside, detectives presented a warrant, charging her with conspiracy and fraud for funneling Brooks Properties funds to Kayla. The arrest was swift, her handcuffs a stark contrast to her diamond earrings. As she was led away, a protester outside held a sign, "End Elite Racism." The scandal had tapped into Boston's undercurrent of unrest, a city grappling with its history of segregation and exclusion, from the busing crises of the 1970s to modern disparities in housing and healthcare. Naomi arrived at the courthouse, the red dress drawing every eye. Photographers snapped pictures, but she ignored them, focusing on the hearing. Rachel Kim met her at the entrance. "Vivian's team is scrambling," Rachel said. "The audio shifted public opinion, and the judge is pressured to act impartially. We've got this." Naomi nodded, but her thoughts were on her children, who were safe at school, but vulnerable to the scandal's fallout. She'd texted them earlier, "I love you both. We're stronger than this." Jordan had replied with a heart emoji, Lila with a simple, "I know, Mom." Inside the courtroom, Naomi sat tall, her evidence ready. The recording played, Vivian's voice echoing. "Naomi was never good enough for my son." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Absent from the hearing, Ethan was dealing with his fallout. Brooks Properties investors were pulling out, citing ethical concerns. Naomi's gaze remained steady, her heart a mix of pain and power. The Brooks reckoning wasn't just her victory. It was a reckoning for a city built on hidden prejudices, a call for change she hadn't expected to lead, but was ready to embrace. The late afternoon sun cast a soft glow over the auditorium of Lila's dance studio, where rows of parents and friends buzzed with anticipation for the recital. Naomi Carter slipped into a front row seat, her red dress from the morning's courthouse hearing exchanged for a simple blouse and slacks, though her presence still commanded attention. Her hands clasped tightly in her lap, a mix of pride and worry etched on her face. The Brooks reckoning, Vivian's arrest, the viral recording, the media frenzy, had shaken Boston, but the impact on Jordan and Lila weighed heaviest on Naomi's heart. She'd promised to protect them, but the scandal's glare made that vow harder to keep. Jordan sat beside her, his shoulders hunched, a bouquet of roses for Lila resting on his knees. He'd been quiet since the confrontation with Ethan, his guilt over not revealing his suspicions about Kayla gnawing at him. Naomi touched his arm. "You okay, champ?" she asked softly. Jordan nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on the stage curtain. Just want Lila to have her moment, he mumbled. Naomi squeezed his hand, sensing the storm beneath his words. The recital was a refuge, a chance to focus on Lila amid the chaos threatening their family. Backstage, Lila adjusted her ballet slippers, her fingers trembling. She'd barely eaten since overhearing her parents' argument, her world rocked by Ethan's betrayal and Vivian's schemes. Naomi had tried to shield her, but the news was inescapable. Classmates whispered about the scandal, their parents' hushed tones echoing in the school halls. Lila caught her reflection in a mirror, her tutu pristine, but her eyes shadowed. "You've got this," she whispered to herself, channeling her mother's strength. Her dance, a piece about resilience, was more than choreography now. It was her heart poured onto the stage. The lights dimmed, and the recital began. Naomi's breath caught as Lila took the stage, her movements fluid yet fierce, each leap a defiance of the pain she carried. The music swelled, a haunting melody mirrored the family's turmoil, and Lila's performance transformed it into something powerful. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, pride mingling with sorrow. Her daughter had turned their brokenness into art, a testament to the strength Naomi fought to instill. After the performance, the audience erupted in applause, and Lila took a shy bow, her gaze finding Naomi and Jordan. Naomi stood, clapping fiercely, while Jordan whistled, a rare smile breaking through. Backstage, Naomi pulled Lila into a tight hug. "You were incredible, baby," she said, her voice thick. Lila clung to her, whispering, "Is Dad gone forever?" The question pierced Naomi, echoing the fear she'd buried since the confrontation. "We're enough, Lila," she said, stroking her daughter's hair. "You, me, Jordan, we're enough." At home that evening, the brownstone felt both sanctuary and battlefield. Naomi gathered Jordan and Lila in the living room, a plate of Lila's favorite cookies on the coffee table, untouched. Jordan broke the silence, his voice low. "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Dad and Kayla. I saw them at a cafe months ago, but I thought I didn't want to hurt you." His eyes glistened, and Naomi knelt before him, cupping his face. "This isn't your burden, Jordan. You were protecting me, and I love you for it. But we don't keep secrets anymore, okay?" Jordan nodded, a tear falling. "I feel like I let you down." Naomi pulled him into a hug, her heart aching. "You could never let me down. You're my strength, both of you." Lila, curled on the couch, spoke softly. "Kids at school were talking about Grandma Vivian. They said she's in jail. Is that true?" Naomi hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. She did wrong, and she's facing the consequences. But that doesn't change who we are." Lila's voice trembled. "I thought she loved us. All those Christmas gifts, the trips. Was it fake?" Naomi sat beside her, choosing her words carefully. "Some people love control more than others. Vivian wanted a certain world, but our world, ours, is built on love, real love. We're Carter strong, remember?" Lila managed a small smile, echoing Carter's strength. Jordan joined them, his arm around Lila, and for a moment, the weight of the scandal lifted, their bond a shield against the storm. Later, alone in her bedroom, Naomi opened her journal, the pages of which were a lifeline through the crisis. "Lila's dance was a miracle," she wrote. "She turned our pain into beauty. But her questions broke me. Is Ethan gone forever? Was Vivian's love fake? I don't have all the answers, and that scares me. The world sees me as strong, but inside, I'm fighting to hold us together. Jordan's guilt, Lila's fear, they're my responsibility. Yet, their resilience gives me hope. We're rebuilding, piece by piece. She closed the journal, and her resolve was renewed. Naomi glanced at her phone, and a text from Rachel Kim glowing on the screen said, "Court went well. Vivian's bail was denied. The media is calling you a hero." Naomi set the phone down, uninterested in headlines. Her heroism was here, in the quiet moments with her children, in the promise to heal their wounds. She thought of the red dress, hanging in her closet, symbolizing the fight she'd begun. The Brooks reckoning had exposed Vivian's prejudice, but the Carter family's strength, forged in love and pain, would carry them forward. As Naomi tucked Lila into bed, her daughter's eyes heavy with sleep, she whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mom. You didn't let Grandma win." Naomi kissed her forehead. "We didn't let her win, baby." In the hallway, Jordan waited, his expression softer. "Thanks for being you, Mom," he said, hugging her tightly. Naomi held him close, her heart full despite the cracks. The scandal raged on, but in this moment, the Carters were unbreakable, their love a light no betrayal could dim. The Suffolk County Courthouse loomed over downtown Boston, its granite facade starkly contrasting with the chaos outside. Reporters crowded the steps, their cameras flashing as protesters waved signs demanding justice, end elite prejudice, and truth over money. Naomi Carter sat in the courtroom, her posture unwavering in the red dress, symbolizing her defiance. The divorce hearing against Ethan Brooks was underway, but the stakes were higher than a simple settlement. Vivian Brooks's arrest and Kayla Reed's leaked recording had turned the case into a public reckoning, exposing a web of prejudice that rippled beyond the Carter family. Naomi's lawyer, Rachel Kim, stood beside her, a stack of evidence organized meticulously on the table. Emails, photos, bank transfers, and Kayla's audio, which had played to a stunned gallery. Rachel had spent days strategizing, knowing Vivian's high-powered legal team would fight dirty. Rachel whispered that we were pushing for full custody of the house, her eyes scanning the room. "The affair and Vivian's conspiracy give us leverage, but Ethan's team claims you neglected the family for your career. We'll counter with testimony from Jordan's teachers and Lila's dance coaches." Naomi nodded, her jaw tight. The accusation stung, but she'd anticipated it. Vivian had tried to influence Judge Margaret Ellison, a family friend, with promises of campaign donations, but the public outcry over the recording made such tactics risky. The judge, under scrutiny, had to appear impartial. Naomi's evidence was ironclad. Vivian's payments to Kayla, totaling over $50,000, were tied to Brooks Properties accounts, suggesting corporate fraud. Ethan's complicity, though passive, was evident in his failure to question the setup. Naomi's goal wasn't just to win, but to expose the truth for Jordan and Lila. The opposing counsel, a slick attorney named Victor Hayes, rose to speak. "My client acknowledges his mistake, but this is a private matter, not a conspiracy, Mrs. Carter's demanding schedule left Mr. Brooks vulnerable, and Ms. Reed acted alone." Naomi's eyes narrowed. The lie was bold, but Hayes was banking on painting her as an absent wife. Rachel countered swiftly, presenting affidavits from hospital staff and community leaders attesting to Naomi's dedication as a mother. Rachel said Mrs. Carter balanced a life-saving career with raising 2 exceptional children. The real issue is Mr. Brooks's infidelity and Mrs. Vivian Brooks's orchestrated campaign to undermine this marriage. The courtroom buzzed as Rachel played Kayla's recording again, Vivian's voice chilling. "Naomi was never good enough for my son." The judge's expression hardened, and Naomi felt a surge of vindication. She glanced at the gallery, where a few reporters scribbled furiously. The case was more than personal now. It sparked Boston's reckoning with its elite's hidden prejudices. From exclusionary clubs to biased hiring practices that favored old money over merit. Outside, the protests grew louder, fueled by the Brooks reckoning. Community organizers, inspired by Naomi's stand, linked the scandal to Boston's history of systemic gatekeeping, redlining that segregated neighborhoods, school disparities that persisted decades after the busing crisis. Naomi's story resonated, her image in the red dress plastered across social media with hashtags like #CarterStrong and #EndEliteRacism. She hadn't sought the spotlight, but it found her, amplifying her fight into a movement. Back in the courtroom, Ethan was absent, his lawyer citing business obligations. Naomi wasn't surprised. His avoidance was another betrayal. Rachel presented the final evidence, a forensic audit showing Vivian's misuse of Brooks Properties funds, implicating Ethan's negligence as CEO. This isn't just infidelity, Rachel argued. It's a pattern of manipulation, enabled by Mr. Brooks's inaction. Mrs. Carter deserves the house, custody, and a clean break. The judge adjourned for deliberation, and Naomi exhaled, the moment's weight settling in. After the hearing, Naomi stepped outside, the flash of cameras blinding. A young protester approached, holding a sign. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. You're showing us we can fight back," she said, her voice earnest. Naomi smiled, touched but weary. "We're all fighting," she replied. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "Proud of you, Mom. Lila's okay, just quiet." Naomi's heart ached, but their resilience fueled her. That evening, Naomi opened her journal in her home office, the pages a refuge for her swirling thoughts. "The courtroom felt like a battlefield," she wrote. "I stood tall, but I was terrified of Jordan and Lila. The world calls me a hero, but I'm just a mother trying to protect her kids. This fight exposes the truths Boston ignored for too long, but it costs us privacy and peace. Can I be their shield and a symbol? I have to try." She closed the journal, her resolve unshaken. Naomi glanced at the red dress hanging in her closet, like a banner of her strength. The hearing wasn't the end. Vivian's fraud charges loomed, and Ethan's silence spoke volumes. But Naomi felt a shift, a power born from truth. The Brooks reckoning had cracked open Boston's elite, and Naomi's stand was a beacon for others. She wasn't just fighting for her family. She was igniting change, one courtroom victory at a time, for a city ready to confront its past and build a fairer future. The air in the Suffolk County Courthouse was tense as Vivian Brooks' bail hearing unfolded, starkly contrasting the polished elegance she once embodied. Her tailored suit hung loosely, her silver hair less pristine under the harsh courtroom lights. The gallery buzzed with reporters and onlookers, drawn by the Brooks reckoning that had gripped Boston. Naomi Carter sat in the back, her presence quiet but commanding, her red dress a subtle reminder of her strength. She wasn't here to gloat, but to witness justice for herself and the others Vivian had targeted over decades. The prosecutor, Sarah Mitchell, stood before Judge Margaret Ellison, her voice steady. "Your Honor, Vivian Brooks orchestrated a campaign of discrimination and harassment, targeting at least 12 families for their choice of spouse. We have bank records, emails, and Kayla Reed's testimony, corroborated by victims willing to testify." She gestured to a folder thick with evidence, including Naomi's meticulously compiled documents and the damning audio Kayla had leaked. Mrs. Brooks used corporate funds from Brooks Properties to finance these schemes, constituting fraud and conspiracy. Vivian's lawyer, James Whitaker, attempted a defense, painting her as a misguided mother. "My client acted out of concern for her family's legacy, not malice," he argued, but his words faltered as the judge's gaze hardened. The evidence was overwhelming. Kayla's recordings detailed Vivian's social adjustment projects, targeting interracial and non-elite couples. Among the victims was Grace Lee, a community organizer whose marriage to a shipping heir had been sabotaged by Vivian 20 years ago. Grace sat beside Naomi, her hands clasped, ready to testify. Outside, the courthouse steps were a stage for Boston's awakening. Galvanized by the scandal, protesters chanted for accountability, their signs linking Vivian's actions to the city's history of exclusionary practices. Naomi's stand had ignited a movement, with community groups demanding reforms in housing, education, and healthcare access. The media dubbed it the Carter Effect, a nod to Naomi's role in exposing elite prejudice. She hadn't sought this mantle, but it fit her now, a weight she carried for her children and others like Grace. Grace leaned toward Naomi, her voice low. I left Boston after Vivian ruined my marriage. The shame was too much, but seeing you fight, I came back. She described her new work, a support group for Vivian's victims, meeting weekly at a community center to share healing stories. We're not hiding anymore, Grace said, her eyes fierce. I'm testifying today, and so are others. Vivian's done. Naomi squeezed her hand, moved by the courage she'd unwittingly inspired. Grace's group included a teacher whose engagement was derailed, a lawyer whose interracial marriage Vivian targeted, and others, all reclaiming their voices. Kayla took the stand in the courtroom, her posture tense but resolute. Mrs. Brooks hired me to seduce Ethan Brooks, she admitted, her voice clear. She paid me to disrupt his marriage because she disapproved of his wife. I was desperate. Student loans, rent, but that's no excuse. She also kept records of other families, calling them unsuitable. I have her notebooks. The golden light of a Boston summer filtered through the windows of the Carter family's Back Bay brownstone, a year after the Brooks reckoning had upended their lives. Naomi Carter stood in her new office at Massachusetts General Hospital, now chief of cardiology, surveying blueprints for the Naomi Carter Medical Center, a community health initiative funded by assets Ethan had signed over from Brooks Properties. The scandal, Vivian's arrest, Kayla's testimony, the exposed prejudice, had reshaped Boston. Still, for Naomi, the real work was here, rebuilding her family, piece by piece, with Jordan and Lila at the core. The brownstone was quieter now, and the echoes of Ethan's betrayal softened with time and effort. Naomi had won full custody, and the house in the divorce, the legal battle a triumph sealed by Vivian's conviction for conspiracy and fraud. Yet the victory felt incomplete when she saw Lila's pensive glances or Jordan's guarded silences. They'd attend Jordan's high school graduation tonight, a milestone that marked his achievement and their family's resilience. Naomi adjusted a framed photo on her desk. Jordan, Lila, and her at Lila's recital, smiling despite the storm. Downstairs, Lila practiced ballet in the living room, her movements fluid but deliberate, channeling the pain of the past year into her art. She'd been accepted into the Boston Conservatory of Dance on a full scholarship, her viral showcase about family strength inspiring young artists across the city. Mom, are you ready? Lila called, tying her hair into a bun. Naomi smiled, grabbing her purse. Almost, sweetheart. Where's your brother? Jordan appeared, dressed in his graduation cap and gown, his valedictorian sash gleaming. Right here, he said, a nervous grin breaking through. Naomi pulled him into a hug. I'm so proud of you, champ. His speech tonight would address their family's journey, a testament to Naomi's lessons. Strength comes from standing against hate, even when it's family. The thought stirred a mix of pride and unease in Naomi. Her children were thriving, but the scars of betrayal lingered. At the graduation ceremony, the auditorium buzzed with families, the air thick with anticipation. Naomi sat with Lila, her eyes scanning the crowd. In the back, Ethan stood quietly, his presence tentative. He'd been in therapy for a year, confronting the damage of Vivian's influence and his weakness. He'd resigned as CEO of Brooks Properties, the company reeling from investor withdrawals, and begun volunteering at a community center, a small step toward atonement. Naomi hadn't forgiven him, but she allowed contact with the kids, respecting their choice to see him. Jordan took the podium, his voice steady. "A year ago, our family learned a hard lesson about truth and justice," he began. "My mother taught us that strength isn't about money or status. It's about standing up for what's right, no matter the cost." The audience leaned in, moved by his sincerity. Naomi's eyes welled, Lila squeezing her hand. Jordan continued, "We learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you hurt you most. But we also learned to rebuild, to choose love over hate." His gaze found Naomi, a silent thank you. Ethan, in the shadows, wiped away a tear. Therapy had forced him to face his complicity. How he'd let Vivian's prejudice erode his marriage. How he'd sought escape in Kayla's flattery. He wasn't the man he'd been, but redemption was a long road. After the ceremony, he approached Lila, holding a small gift, a ballet pendant. "For your showcase next month," he said softly. Lila hesitated, then took it. "Thanks, Dad. I'll think about inviting you." It was a fragile bridge, but a start. Back home, Naomi helped Lila pack for dance camp, their laughter filling the brownstone. Jordan joined, tossing a pillow playfully. The moment felt like a gift, a reminder of what they'd preserved. Later, alone in her bedroom, Naomi opened her journal, her sanctuary for processing the past year. Jordan's speech was a mirror, she wrote. "He sees our strength, but I still fear I've failed them. The world calls me a hero, but I'm just a mother, piecing us back together. Ethan's trying, but forgiveness isn't mine to give yet. It's for Lila and Jordan to decide. I'm building something new. For us. For Boston." Naomi closed the journal, glancing at the red dress in her closet, symbolizing her fight. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Henry Patel. "Medical center groundbreaking next week. You're changing lives, Naomi." She smiled, but her thoughts were on her children. The Carter effect had sparked reforms, hospital policies, community programs. But her true legacy was here, in Jordan's courage, Lila's artistry, their shared mantra, Carter strong. As Naomi tucked Lila into bed, her daughter whispered, "I'm glad we're us, Mom. Not Brooks, but Carters." Naomi kissed her forehead. "Me too, baby." In the hallway, Jordan waited, his MIT acceptance letter in hand. "You showed us how to fight, Mom," he said, hugging her. Naomi held him tight, her heart full. The scars remained, but they were healing, their family a testament to love's resilience over betrayal's shadow. The auditorium of Massachusetts General Hospital buzzed with energy, packed with medical professionals, students, and community leaders gathered for the hospital's annual conference. Naomi Carter stood at the podium, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "Prejudice hides in boardrooms and ballrooms," she said, her words carrying the weight of her journey. "Sometimes it wears designer clothes and calls itself tradition. But no matter its disguise, we must stand against it." The room erupted in applause, her story, now a case study in law schools, resonating as a call to action. The Carter effect had become a beacon, sparking change across Boston. A year had passed since Vivian Brooks's conviction, and the city was transformed. The Naomi Carter Medical Center's steel framework, rising in Roxbury, symbolized hope for underserved communities, funded by the assets of Brooks Properties that Ethan had relinquished. Naomi, now chief of medicine, oversaw its progress, ensuring it addressed racial disparities in healthcare. Her office, lined with awards and family photos, held a framed red dress, a quiet reminder of the day she reclaimed her power. Yet, her true legacy was her family. Jordan, now at MIT, and Lila, thriving at the Boston Conservatory of Dance. Naomi glanced at the audience, spotting Lila, who recorded her speech with a proud smile, and Jordan, who nodded encouragingly. Their resilience had carried them through the scandal's fallout, and their mantra. Carter was a fierce guiding light. Sitting in the back, Ethan attended quietly, his presence a cautious step toward rebuilding trust. He'd spent the year volunteering at community centers, confronting his past through therapy. Forgiveness remained distant, but Naomi allowed his efforts for their children's sake, a choice rooted in their healing, not his. After the speech, a young medical student approached Naomi, her eyes bright with admiration. "Dr. Carter, your story changed everything," she said. "I'm first generation, and last year I was passed over for a residency. After the Carter effect, the hospital revised its policies. I got the spot." Naomi's heart swelled. "You earned it," she replied. "Keep pushing." The student's story echoed others. Hospitals, schools, even private clubs were rethinking exclusionary practices, spurred by the public outcry over Vivian's schemes. Across town, Grace Lee led a workshop at her support group for Vivian's victims, now a thriving network of dozens. A former teacher, whose engagement Vivian had sabotaged, shared how she'd rebuilt her career. A lawyer spoke of mending ties with his ex-wife. Grace, whose own marriage had been destroyed 20 years ago, stood tall. "Naomi showed us how to fight," she told the group. "We're not just survivors. We're changemakers." Amplified by the media, their stories fueled reforms, from fair housing initiatives to diversity training in Boston's elite circles. At the brownstone that evening, Naomi helped Lila pack for dance school, an old photo album open on the bed. A picture from her wedding to Ethan caught her eye. Vivian's stiff smile a shadow of her disapproval. "You okay, Mom?" Lila asked, noticing her pause. Naomi closed the album. "Better than okay, baby. Vivian thought she could break us, but she made us stronger." Lila grinned, hugging her. "Carter is strong," she said. Jordan appeared, tossing an MIT sweatshirt onto the pile. "Stevens was strong," he echoed, his voice warm. Later, Naomi's phone buzzed with a call from Kayla Reed, now living quietly outside Boston. "Dr. Carter, I'm getting married," Kayla said, her voice nervous. "My fiancé's family disapproves, but your story gave me the courage to follow my heart, not their prejudice." Naomi smiled, touched by the irony. "Be happy, Kayla," she said. "That's the best answer to hate." Kayla's redemption, like Ethan's, was imperfect but real, a testament to the ripple effects of Naomi's stand. Naomi opened her journal in her office, her sanctuary through the storm. She wrote that the world sees me as a symbol, but I'm still a mother, a human. Jordan and Lila are my heart. Their strength is my anchor. The Carter effect is bigger than me. Grace, the students, and Boston waking up. I fear the cost sometimes, the eyes on us, but I know we're building something lasting. Vivian's hate failed. Our love won. She closed the journal, her gaze settling on the red dress, now a quiet emblem of resilience. The Boston Globe ran a headline the next day. "Carter Effect Reshapes City, from Scandal to Systemic Change." It detailed reforms sparked by Naomi's story, new hospital policies, community health programs, even a city council push for equitable housing. At Lila's dance showcase, her choreography about identity drew a standing ovation, inspiring young artists to tell their truths. Jordan, mentoring underrepresented students at MIT, carried his mother's lessons forward. volunteering at a youth program. Ethan watched from afar, hoping to earn a small place in their lives. Naomi stood at the medical center's groundbreaking, her family beside her. Grace Lee joined them. Her support group is now a non-profit advocating for justice. "You started this," Grace whispered. Naomi shook her head. "We all did." The unbroken and unstoppable Carter family had turned Betrayal into a legacy of love, truth, and change, proving that strength is not from fighting back, but rising above.